My daughter-in-law called me a fat pig at her wedding reception. 3 minutes later, her father realized I was the secret multimillionaire who bought his failing company and saved his entire family from financial ruin. Let me tell you exactly how that moment changed everything. Before I continue, if you enjoy stories about family drama, late-life empowerment, and justice finally being served, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling me what you would have done in my situation. Your support means everything to this channel. My name is Emily Turner. I am 62 years old. For the past 15 years, I have lived what I call strategically invisible. I dress simply. I drive a 10-year-old Honda. I live in a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb. Most people who meet me assume I am a retired teacher or maybe a librarian. They see a quiet widow who keeps to herself and minds her own business. They have no idea who I really am or what I am actually worth. My son Dylan was getting married. His fiancée was Jessica Reynolds, daughter of Robert and Margaret Reynolds. The Reynolds family owned Reynolds Holdings, a commercial real estate development company that had been in their family for 3 generations. They were old money. At least, that is what they wanted everyone to believe. The wedding was extravagant. It was held at the Rosewood Estate, one of the most expensive venues in the state. There were 200 guests. The flowers alone probably cost more than most people spend on their entire wedding. Jessica wore a custom gown that she mentioned cost $35,000. Everything was designed to impress, to show status, to prove that the Reynolds family still mattered. I wore a simple navy dress that I bought on sale at Nordstrom Rack 3 years earlier. I kept my jewelry minimal. I smiled politely and stayed in the background. That is how I have lived my life since my husband Thomas passed away. Invisible. Observant. Patient. During the cocktail hour, I overheard Jessica talking to one of her bridesmaids near the bar. She did not know I was standing behind a decorative column, just a few feet away. Her bridesmaid asked, "So what do you think of Dylan's mom?" Jessica laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was sharp and dismissive. "Oh my God," she said. "She is so embarrassing. Did you see what she is wearing? That dress looks like something from a clearance bin. And she has gained so much weight. Honestly, she looks like a fat pig." I told Dylan we need to make sure she stays in the background for photos. I do not want her ruining our wedding album. Her bridesmaid giggled nervously. I stood there frozen. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. But I did not move. I did not confront her. I just listened. "Does Dylan know you feel that way?" the bridesmaid asked. Jessica shrugged. "He is too nice to say it, but I know he is embarrassed by her too. I mean, she lives in this tiny house and drives that awful car. It is like she does not even try. Thank God my family has money. At least our kids will grow up with some class." I walked away quietly. I went to the restroom, locked myself in a stall, and took 3 deep breaths. I told myself to stay calm. I told myself that this was not the time. Not yet. The reception began. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. Dylan looked so happy. He had no idea what kind of person he had just married. And I realized in that moment that I had a choice. I could stay silent and let my son figure it out on his own. Or I could let the truth come out and let the consequences unfold naturally. Then came the moment that changed everything. After dinner, Jessica brought her parents over to my table to introduce them. Margaret Reynolds was polished and cold. She shook my hand limply and gave me a tight smile. Robert Reynolds was tall, silver-haired, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had spent his entire life being important. Jessica said, "Mom, Dad, this is Dylan's mother, Emily." Margaret nodded politely. Robert extended his hand. I shook it, and then he froze. His face went pale. His eyes widened. He stared at me like he had just seen a ghost. "Wait," he said slowly. "Emily Turner?" I nodded. "Yes." He took a step back. His hand was still holding mine, but his grip had gone limp. "You are Emily Turner," he repeated. "The Emily Turner." Margaret looked confused. Jessica looked annoyed. "Dad, what are you talking about?" Jessica asked. Robert ignored her. He was still staring at me. "You are the one who bought Reynolds Holdings," he said quietly. "You are the silent investor. You are the one who saved my company." The table went silent. Jessica's face went from annoyed to confused to horrified in the span of about 3 seconds. "What?" Jessica whispered. Robert turned to his daughter, his voice shaking. "Jessica, do you have any idea who this woman is?" Jessica shook her head, speechless. Robert looked back at me, his expression a mixture of shock, gratitude, and fear. Emily Turner is the majority shareholder of Reynolds Holdings, he said. She owns 70% of our company. She has owned it for the past 8 years. She is the reason we still have a business. She is the reason we still have our home. She is the reason I still have a job. Jessica's mouth fell open. Margaret gasped. The people at the nearby tables started to turn and listen. I smiled politely, the same calm smile I had worn all evening. It is lovely to finally meet you in person, Robert, I said quietly. And just like that, the invisible widow became the most important person at the wedding. Let me take you back to where this all started, because none of this makes sense without understanding how I became the woman I am today. My story is not about luck. It is not about inheritance. It is about brilliance, patience, and a husband who saw the future before anyone else did. I met Thomas Turner when I was 23 years old. He was 26, awkward, brilliant, and completely obsessed with battery technology. Most people thought he was wasting his time. His own family told him to get a real job. But I saw something in him that nobody else did. I saw focus. I saw genius. I saw someone who was going to change the world, even if the world did not know it yet. We got married 2 years later. We lived in a tiny apartment. Thomas worked in a basement lab that he rented for $300 a month. I worked as an administrative assistant at a law firm to pay our bills. We ate ramen noodles 4 nights a week. We drove a car that broke down every other month. But Thomas kept working. He kept testing. He kept failing and trying again. Then, in 1997, he had a breakthrough. Thomas invented a battery cell design that was smaller, lighter, more efficient, and longer-lasting than anything on the market. It could be used in everything from laptops to electric vehicles to medical devices. He filed for a patent. 6 months later, a major tech company came knocking. They offered him $2 million for the patent. Thomas said no. They came back with $5 million. He said no again. I remember sitting at our kitchen table, staring at that offer letter, thinking about all the things we could do with $5 million. But Thomas looked at me and said, "Emily, this is worth more than $5 million. They know it. That is why they are here. If we are patient, we can get what it is actually worth." So we waited. 3 months later, they came back with $12 million. Thomas countered with $25 million, plus royalties on future use. They agreed. At 31 years old, my husband sold a single patent for $25 million, and we went from eating ramen noodles to having more money than we ever imagined. But here is the thing that most people do not understand about sudden wealth. It is not about spending. It is about what you do next. Most lottery winners go bankrupt within 5 years. Most people who inherit money lose it within a generation. Wealth is not about how much you make. It is about how smart you are with what you have. Thomas and I made a decision. We were not going to buy mansions. We were not going to buy yachts. We were not going to live like celebrities. We were going to invest, grow, and build something that would last. We hired a financial advisor named Richard Koenig. Richard was quiet, methodical, and brilliant. He did not work with flashy clients. He worked with people who wanted to build generational wealth. He sat down with us and said, "If you do this right, 25 million can become 500 million in 20 years. But you have to be disciplined. You have to be patient. And you have to stay invisible." So that is exactly what we did. We put 15 million into a diversified portfolio of conservative stocks, growth funds, and index funds. We invested 3 million into real estate, buying small apartment buildings and commercial properties in growing cities. We put 2 million into early-stage tech startups, including a little company that would later become worth billions. We kept 5 million liquid for opportunities. Then we did something that most people would think is crazy. We went back to living like we had before. We stayed in our modest house. We drove used cars. We did not tell anyone about the money. Not our friends. Not our extended family. Not even our son. Dylan was born in 2000. By then, our investments were already worth over $60 million. But we did not change our lifestyle. Dylan grew up thinking we were middle class. He went to public school. He got a part-time job at 16. He applied for scholarships to pay for college. He learned how to work hard, how to budget, how to earn what he wanted. We did that on purpose. We wanted him to build his own life without the burden of knowing he came from wealth. We wanted him to be proud of what he accomplished, not handed everything because of a last name. Meanwhile, Thomas kept inventing. He held 14 patents by the time he turned 50. Some of them we licensed. Some we sold. Every single one added to our growing portfolio. We invested in real estate markets before they boomed. We bought shares of companies before they went public. We partnered with brilliant people who were building things that mattered. We were strategic. We were disciplined. We were invisible. By 2010, our net worth was over $300 million. By 2015, it was over $600 million. And then, in 2017, Thomas passed away. He had a heart attack in his sleep. He was 64 years old. I woke up next to him and knew immediately that he was gone. I sat with him for an hour before I called anyone. I held his hand. I told him thank you. I told him that I would take care of everything he built. I told him that I would make sure his work mattered. The funeral was small. We did not have a public obituary. We did not make a big announcement. Dylan was devastated, but he handled it with grace. He had no idea that his father had left behind an empire worth over $700 million. After Thomas died, Richard and I met privately. He walked me through every asset, every investment, every holding. Then he asked me a question. "Emily," he said, "what do you want to do now?" I thought about it for a long time. And then I told him, "I want to keep building," I said. "I want to stay invisible. And I want to use this money to help people who deserve it, without them ever knowing it came from me." Richard nodded. "Then that is exactly what we will do." Over the next few years, I quietly bought shares in struggling companies that had good leadership and bad luck. I provided anonymous funding to scholarship programs. I bought buildings and kept rents affordable. I partnered with people who were doing good work, but needed capital. One of those companies was Reynolds Holdings. Reynolds Holdings came across my desk in 2016. Richard brought it to my attention during one of our quarterly portfolio reviews. He laid out the financials and gave me his assessment. The company had been family-owned for 3 generations. It had a strong reputation in commercial real estate development, but it was drowning in debt. Robert Reynolds had made a series of bad investments during the 2008 financial crisis. He borrowed heavily to expand during the boom, and when the market crashed, he was over-leveraged and overextended. By 2016, Reynolds Holdings was 6 months away from bankruptcy. Richard showed me the numbers. The company owed $43 million. It had assets worth $70 million, but most of those assets were tied up in properties that could not be sold quickly. The banks were circling. Creditors were demanding payment. Robert was trying to negotiate, but he was running out of options. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked Richard. "Because the bones of this company are good," he said. Robert made bad timing decisions, but his actual projects are solid. If someone came in, restructured the debt, and gave him time to stabilize, this company could be worth $200 million in 10 years. "And what would it take?" $55 million, Richard said. 43 to clear the debt. 12 for operating capital and restructuring costs. I thought about it. $55 million was a significant investment, but it was not reckless. If Richard was right, and I trusted his judgment, this could be a smart long-term play. "What would my role be?" I asked. "Silent majority shareholder," Richard said. "You would own 70%. Robert would keep 20% and remain CEO. The remaining 10% would go to key employees as retention incentives. You would have control, but you would not be involved in daily operations. Robert would never have to know who you are." I liked that. I liked the idea of saving a family business without anyone knowing I was the one who did it. I liked the idea of giving someone a second chance without them feeling like they owed me. "Set it up," I said. Richard handled everything through a shell company. The acquisition was structured as a private equity buyout. Robert Reynolds believed he was selling to an anonymous investment group. He had no idea that the person who saved his company was a quiet widow living 20 minutes away from his house. For the next 8 years, I watched Reynolds Holdings stabilize and grow. Robert was a good operator once the financial pressure was off. He focused on smaller, smarter projects. He rebuilt relationships with investors. He paid down the remaining debts ahead of schedule. By 2023, the company was valued at over $150 million.
I never told Dylan about any of this. I never told anyone. I attended board meetings remotely under a pseudonym. I received quarterly reports. I made strategic decisions when necessary. But I stayed invisible. That invisibility was not weakness. It was power. You see, most people think power means being seen. They think power is about walking into a room and having everyone know your name. They think power is about status and recognition and having people treat you like you matter. But I learned something different from Thomas. Real power is control without attention. Real power is influence without recognition. Real power is being able to change someone's entire life and having them never know it was you. I stayed invisible because visibility makes you a target. The moment people know you have money, they start seeing you differently. They start asking for things. They start resenting you. They start trying to figure out how to take what you have. I wanted to live my life on my own terms. I wanted to help people without them feeling obligated. I wanted to make decisions without being questioned. I wanted to be free. So I lived simply. I volunteered at the library. I took painting classes. I went to book club meetings with women who had no idea I was worth more than all of them combined. I was kind. I was quiet. I was forgettable. And I loved it. Dylan built his own career. He graduated from college with a degree in marketing. He worked his way up at a consulting firm. He rented an apartment. He saved money. He was proud of what he accomplished, and I was proud of him for doing it on his own. When he started dating Jessica Reynolds, I did my research. I knew exactly who her family was. I knew that I owned the majority of her father's company. But Dylan did not know. And I decided not to tell him. I thought maybe Jessica was different from her parents. I thought maybe she loved Dylan for who he was, not what she thought he could give her. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. But I also watched, listened, paid attention. Jessica was charming in public. She was polite to me when Dylan was around. But there were small moments that made me uneasy. The way she talked about money. The way she dismissed people she thought were beneath her. The way she made comments about my house and my car and my clothes. Still I said nothing. I told myself that Dylan was an adult. He could make his own choices. If this was who he wanted to marry, I would support him. Then came the wedding. And Jessica's comment. And Robert's reaction. And everything I had carefully built came into the light. The morning after the wedding, I woke up at 6:30, made myself a cup of tea, and sat on my back porch watching the sun rise. I knew what was coming. I knew Dylan would show up. I knew he would be confused, angry, maybe even hurt. I had spent 15 years protecting him from the truth. And now that protection was gone. He arrived at 8:15. I heard his car pull into the driveway. I heard the door slam. I heard his footsteps on the walkway, heavy and fast. He did not knock. He used his key and walked straight into the kitchen. "Mom," he said. His voice was tight. "We need to talk." I set down my tea and looked at him. "My son. My beautiful, kind, hard-working son." He looked exhausted. His hair was messy. His eyes were red. He was still wearing the same shirt he had on the night before, just wrinkled now. "Good morning, sweetheart," I said calmly. "Would you like some coffee?" "I do not want coffee," he said. "I want you to tell me what the hell is going on." He nodded. "Sit down." He did not sit. He paced. "Is it true? What Jessica's dad said? Did you really buy his company?" "Yes." He stopped pacing. "When?" 2016. "Why did you not tell me?" "Because you did not need to know." He laughed, but it was not a happy sound. It was sharp and bitter. "I did not need to know. Mom, I have been with Jessica for 3 years. I have met her parents dozens of times. You have been sitting across the table from them at dinners and holidays. And you never once thought to mention that you own their entire business." "I did not think it was relevant," I said. "Not relevant." His voice rose. "How is that not relevant?" "Because my financial decisions have nothing to do with your relationship," I said. "I bought Reynolds Holdings as an investment. It was a business decision. It had nothing to do with you or Jessica." Dylan stared at me like I was a stranger. "Who are you?" That question hurt more than I expected. I took a breath and kept my voice steady. "I am your mother," I said. "I am the same person I have always been." "No," he said. "You are not. The mom I know lives in a small house and drives an old car and works part-time at the library. The mom I know does not secretly own multimillion-dollar companies. So who are you really?" I stood up and walked over to him. I put my hand on his arm. He did not pull away, but he did not relax either. "Sit down," I said again. "Please." This time he did. He dropped into the chair at the kitchen table and put his head in his hands. I sat across from him and folded my hands in my lap. "Your father invented something incredible," I said. "Before you were born, he created technology that changed an entire industry. He sold the patent for $25 million. We invested that money carefully. We built wealth slowly and strategically. By the time your father passed away, we had built a portfolio worth over $700 million. Dylan lifted his head. His face was pale. $700 million. "More now," I said. "Closer to $850 million. He just stared at me. I watched him trying to process it, trying to make sense of it. "Why did you not tell me?" he whispered. "Because I wanted you to build your own life," I said. "I wanted you to work hard and be proud of what you accomplished. I wanted you to know that you earned everything you have. I did not want you growing up thinking you were entitled to something you did not build yourself." "That was not your decision to make," he said. "Yes," I said. "It was." He looked at me with something I had never seen before. Betrayal. Anger. "Did Dad know you were going to do this?" he asked. "It was his idea," I said. "He wanted you to grow up normal. He wanted you to understand the value of hard work. He wanted you to be strong and independent. And you are. Dylan, you have built an incredible career. You have accomplished so much. You did that on your own. That is something to be proud of." "But it was all a lie," he said. "No," I said firmly. "It was protection." He shook his head. "You do not get to decide what I needed protection from." I did not argue. He was right. But I also did not regret my choice. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally Dylan spoke again. "Jessica knows now," he said quietly. "Yes. She is going to want access to your money." "I know. What are you going to do?" I looked at my son and chose my words carefully. "I am going to protect you," I said. "And I am going to protect what your father and I built. Jessica can want whatever she wants. That does not mean she will get it." Dylan looked up at me, and for the first time since he arrived, I saw fear in his eyes. "Mom," he said, "what kind of person did I marry?" I reached across the table and took his hand.
"I do not know yet," I said honestly. "But we are about to find out." Jessica reached out 2 days later. She sent me a text message at 9:43 in the morning. It was polite, carefully worded, and completely calculated. "Hi, Emily. I hope you are doing well. I was hoping we could meet for lunch this week. I think it would be good for us to talk privately. Let me know what works for you. Jessica." I stared at that message for a full minute. I knew exactly what this was. This was not a daughter-in-law reaching out to build a relationship. This was a strategic move. Jessica had spent the past 2 days processing the information from the wedding. She had talked to her father. She had probably talked to her mother. She had definitely talked to Dylan. And now she wanted to meet with me privately, away from witnesses, so she could start positioning herself. I could have ignored the text. I could have declined. But I wanted to see what she would do. I wanted to see how she would play this. So I responded. "Thursday at noon. The Garden Bistro. I will make a reservation." She replied within 30 seconds. "Perfect. See you then." For the next 2 days, I did my own research. I called Richard and asked him to pull together everything he had on the Reynolds family. Not just the company financials. I wanted personal information. I wanted to know how they were really living. I wanted to know what Jessica's life actually looked like behind the polished surface. What Richard sent me was eye-opening. The Reynolds family was drowning. They lived in a 7,000 square foot house in an exclusive gated community. They drove luxury cars. Margaret wore designer clothes. Robert belonged to a private country club. On the surface, they looked like old money. But the truth was very different. Their house had a mortgage of $2.3 million. They owed $600,000 on their cars. They had credit card debt totaling over $200,000. Their country club membership cost $50,000 a year, and they were 3 months behind on payments. Robert's salary from Reynolds Holdings was $280,000 a year, which sounds like a lot until you realize they were spending almost $400,000 annually just to maintain their lifestyle. They were not wealthy. They were leveraged to the breaking point. And Jessica was even worse. Jessica had 3 credit cards, all maxed out. She owed $97,000 in personal debt. She had opened 2 new lines of credit in the past 6 months, right around the time she and Dylan got engaged. She was spending money she did not have, and based on the timing, it was clear she was betting on access to Dylan's future income. Except Dylan did not have a future fortune. At least, he did not until Jessica found out about me. Now everything made sense. Jessica was not just gold digging. She was desperate. Her entire family was on the edge of financial collapse, and she thought marrying Dylan would be her safety net. When she found out I was the one who owned her father's company, I went from being an embarrassment to being her potential salvation. Richard also found something else. Jessica had been researching me. She hired a private investigator 3 days after the wedding. The investigator had pulled property records, business filings, and financial disclosures. Jessica knew I owned Reynolds Holdings. She knew I had significant assets. She was building a profile on me that told me everything I needed to know. Jessica was not reaching out for lunch to apologize or build a relationship. She was reaching out because she was planning something. Thursday came. I arrived at the Garden Bistro at 11:55. It was a quiet, upscale restaurant with private booths and soft lighting. I chose it specifically because it was discreet. Whatever Jessica wanted to say, I wanted her to feel comfortable saying it. She arrived at 12:02. She was wearing a cream-colored dress, tasteful jewelry, and a practiced smile. She looked nervous, but she was hiding it well. "Emily," she said warmly as she approached the table. "Thank you so much for meeting me." "Of course," I said. I stood and gave her a polite hug. We sat down. The waiter brought menus. We ordered. Jessica got a salad. I got the salmon. We made small talk about the weather and the restaurant. Then, once the waiter left, Jessica folded her hands on the table and leaned forward slightly. "I wanted to talk to you privately," she said, "because I think there has been some tension since the wedding, and I want to clear the air." "I appreciate that," I said. "I know my dad's reaction was surprising," she continued. "And I think Dylan has been feeling confused about everything. But I want you to know that I have so much respect for you, Emily. What you have built is incredible. Truly." She said it with such sincerity that if I did not know better, I might have believed her. "Thank you," I said. "I also want to apologize," she said. "I think I may have come across as dismissive or cold before the wedding. That was never my intention. I was just stressed about the planning and making sure everything was perfect. I hope you can forgive me." I smiled. "Of course." She relaxed a little. She thought this was going well. "I have been thinking a lot about family," she said, "about what it means to be connected. And I realize now that you and I are going to be in each other's lives for a long time. Dylan loves you. I love Dylan. So I want us to have a good relationship." "I want that too," I said. She smiled. Then she took a breath, and I saw the shift. This was the moment. This was why we were really here. "I also think," she said carefully, "that as a family, we have an opportunity to do something really meaningful together." "Oh," I said. "What do you have in mind?" She leaned in a little closer, her voice soft and earnest. "I have been talking to my dad about legacy," she said, "about building something that lasts. And I think with your resources and our connections, we could create something incredible. A family foundation. Something that supports causes we all care about." I took a sip of my water and waited for her to continue. "I was thinking," she said, "we could start with an initial contribution of maybe $50 million, just to get it off the ground. And then we could structure it so that you, Dylan, and I all have equal voting rights. That way, it is truly a family effort." There it was. $50 million. Equal voting rights. She wanted me to hand over a fortune and then give her control over how it was spent. I set down my glass and looked at her carefully. "That is an interesting idea," I said. Her face lit up. "You think so?" "Tell me," I said. "Why equal voting rights?" She blinked. "Well, because we are family. It should be a shared decision-making process." "But it would be my $50 million, I said. She hesitated. "Yes, but it would be for all of us. For the family." I nodded slowly. "And what happens if Dylan and I disagree with you on how the money should be used?" "Then we talk about it," she said. "We work it out together. And if we cannot work it out—" She smiled, but it was a little tighter now. "Then we vote. And if you and Dylan vote together, I lose." She did not answer right away. I watched her trying to figure out how to spin it. "Emily," she said finally, "I think you are misunderstanding my intention. This is not about control. This is about partnership." I smiled. "I understand your intention perfectly." And in that moment, Jessica realized I was not going to be as easy to manipulate as she thought. The rest of lunch was polite but strained. Jessica tried to steer the conversation back to lighter topics, but the tension was there. She knew I had seen through her proposal. I knew she was going to keep pushing. We finished our meals. I paid the check. We walked out to the parking lot together. Before we got to our cars, Jessica stopped and turned to me. "Emily," she said, "I hope I did not offend you. I really do want us to be close." "I appreciate that," I said. "And I think honesty is the best foundation for any relationship. So let me be honest with you." Her smile faltered slightly. "I built what I have through decades of hard work, smart decisions, and discipline," I said. "I did not build it to hand over control to anyone, family, or otherwise. If you want to propose a charitable project, I am happy to listen. But I will never agree to a structure where I am outvoted on how my own money is used." Jessica's face went carefully blank. "I understand." "Good," I said. "I am glad we cleared that up." I got in my car and drove away. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I glanced in my rearview mirror. Jessica was standing next to her car, phone already pressed to her ear. She was calling someone, probably her father, possibly a lawyer. I was right. Over the next week, things escalated quickly. Dylan called me and said Jessica had been acting strange. She was spending hours on her laptop researching estate law and inheritance structures. She was asking him pointed questions about my assets and my plans. She was distant and distracted. Then Richard called me. "Emily," he said, "I just got a strange inquiry. Someone contacted my office claiming to represent your family and asking for detailed financial disclosures." "Let me guess," I said. "Jessica Reynolds." "Her attorney," Richard said. "A lawyer named Philip Gaines. He is a estate litigation specialist. That is not a good sign." "What did you tell him?" "Nothing," Richard said. "I told him that any inquiries regarding your finances need to come directly from you in writing. But Emily, if she is hiring estate attorneys, she is planning something." "I know," I said. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to investigate her," I said. "Not just surface level. I want everything. Her credit history, her spending patterns, her debts, her family's financial situation. I want to know exactly how desperate she is." Richard did not ask questions. He just said, "I will have a full report by end of week." 3 days later, he sent me a 52-page document. I spent an entire afternoon reading through it. And what I found was worse than I expected. Jessica was not just in debt. She was in crisis. She owed $97,000 across 3 credit cards. But that was just the beginning. She also had 2 personal loans totaling $65,000. She had a car lease she could not afford. She had opened 4 new credit accounts in the past year, each with high interest rates and mounting balances. Her monthly expenses were almost $9,000, but her income was only $3,200 a month from a part-time job at an art gallery. The math did not work. She was borrowing from one card to pay another. She was making minimum payments and falling further behind every month. Her parents were in the same situation. Robert and Margaret Reynolds were bleeding money. Their mortgage, their car payments, their country club dues, their lifestyle expenses, all of it was funded by debt. They were 6 months away from having to sell their house. And then I found something that made my stomach turn. Jessica had taken out a life insurance policy on Dylan. A $2 million policy. She was the sole beneficiary. She had taken it out 3 months before the wedding. I stared at that page for a long time. I wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation. Maybe it was just standard financial planning. Maybe her financial advisor suggested it. But combined with everything else, it felt sinister. I called Richard. "Did you see the life insurance policy?" I asked. "Yes. That is not normal, is it?" Richard was quiet for a moment. "Not for a young couple with no dependents." "No. What does it mean?" "It could mean nothing," he said carefully. "Or it could mean she is thinking long-term about securing her financial future. Or," I said, "it could mean she married my son because she thought his family had money and she wanted to make sure she was covered either way." Richard did not argue. I also found records showing that Jessica had been consulting with an estate planning attorney for 6 weeks, starting 2 weeks after she got engaged to Dylan. She had researched inheritance laws in our state. She had looked into spousal rights and community property. She had downloaded documents about contesting wills and trusts. This was not just opportunism. This was a calculated plan. Jessica had not married Dylan because she loved him. She married him because she thought he came from money. And when she found out I was the source of that money, she shifted her strategy. Now, she was not just trying to access my wealth. She was trying to position herself legally so that if something happened to me or to Dylan, she would have a claim. I felt sick. I felt angry. But more than anything, I felt sad for my son. Dylan loved her. He believed in her. He had no idea that the woman he married saw him as a financial asset, not a partner. I called Dylan that night. "Sweetheart," I said. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" "Is everything okay?" he asked. "No," I said. "It is not." He arrived an hour later. I made tea. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place we had sat a week earlier. I handed him the report. "What is this?" he asked. "Read it," I said. He did. I watched his face change as he went through the pages. Confusion. Disbelief. Hurt. Anger. When he finished, he set the folder down and looked at me. "Is this real?" he whispered. "Yes." "She took out life insurance on me?" "Yes." He put his head in his hands. "Why would she do that?" I reached across the table and put my hand on his arm. "Because she is not who you thought she was," I said gently. Dylan sat there for a long time, not moving, not speaking. Finally, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "What do I do?" he asked. "You protect yourself," I said. "And you let me handle the rest." The next morning, I called Jessica. I did not text. I called. I wanted her to hear my voice. She answered on the third ring. "Emily." "Hi. Is everything okay?" "I need to see you," I said. "Today." There was a pause. Sure. "Is Dylan okay?" "He is fine. This is between you and me." Another pause. Longer this time. "Okay. When?" 2:00. "My house." "I will be there," she said. She arrived at 1:58. I watched her pull up from my front window. She sat in her car for a full minute before getting out. She was nervous. Good. I opened the door before she knocked. "Come in," I said. She stepped inside. I did not offer her tea or coffee. I did not invite her to sit. We stood in the entryway, face to face. "What is this about?" she asked. I handed her a folder. She opened it. Her face went pale as she flipped through the pages. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "That does not matter," I said. "What matters is that I know exactly who you are. I know what you owe. I know what your parents owe. I know about the life insurance policy. I know about the estate attorney. I know everything." She closed the folder. Her hands were shaking. "This is a violation of my privacy. And taking out a $2 million life insurance policy on my son without his knowledge is a violation of his trust," I said. "So I think we are even." She did not respond. "Let me be very clear," I said. "You married Dylan because you thought he came from money. When you found out about me, you shifted your strategy. You started researching inheritance laws. You hired attorneys. You started positioning yourself to claim access to my wealth." "That is not true," she said, but her voice was weak. "Yes," I said. "It is." She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Not manipulation. Not calculation. Fear. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to leave my son alone," I said. "I want you to sign a post-nuptial agreement waiving any claim to my assets. And I want you to cancel that life insurance policy. And if I do not, then I will make sure Dylan sees all of this," I said. "And I will make sure your father knows that the only reason his company still exists is because of me. And I will make sure every single creditor you owe money to knows exactly how deep your financial problems go." Her face went white. "You would ruin me." "No," I said. "You already ruined yourself. I am just choosing whether or not to let everyone else see it." She stood there, frozen, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You are not who I thought you were," she said quietly. "Neither are you," I said. She left without another word. I watched her drive away, and I knew this was not over. Jessica was not the type to back down. She was cornered, desperate, and dangerous. I was right. 2 days later, Dylan called me in a panic. "Mom, Jessica filed for separation." My heart sank. "When?" "This morning. She served me papers at work. She is claiming irreconcilable differences and requesting a legal separation while she considers her options." "Did she ask for spousal support?" "Yes." She is asking for $12,000 a month. I closed my eyes. This was exactly what I was afraid of. Dylan, listen to me very carefully, I said. Do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything. Get a lawyer. Today. I already did, he said. But Mom, there is something else. What? She filed a complaint with the State Attorney General's office. She is claiming that you engaged in financial misconduct and that you manipulated her father's company. She is saying you deceived investors and used shell companies to hide assets. I felt my blood run cold. That is a lie, I said. I know, Dylan said. But she filed it officially. They are going to investigate. Jessica was not just trying to get money. She was trying to destroy me. She was trying to create enough legal pressure that I would be forced to settle, to pay her off just to make the problem go away. But she made one critical mistake. She underestimated me. I called Richard immediately. Jessica Reynolds just filed a formal complaint against me, I said. She is accusing me of financial misconduct related to the Reynolds Holdings acquisition. I saw, Richard said. Her attorney sent a courtesy copy to my office this morning. Can she do this? She can file anything she wants, Richard said. Whether it goes anywhere is another question. Emily, every transaction we did was legal and transparent. We have documentation for everything. Shell companies are not illegal. Silent investments are not illegal. She has no case. Then why did she do it? Because she is trying to scare you, Richard said. She is betting that you will want to avoid the hassle of an investigation and that you will pay her to go away. She is wrong. I know, Richard said. But we need to be strategic here. If this goes public, it could be messy. Do you want me to reach out to her attorney and try to settle quietly? No, I said. I want you to bury her. Richard was quiet for a moment. Are you sure? Completely. Okay, he said. Then here's what we do. We respond to the complaint with full documentation. We show that every transaction was legal, transparent, and properly filed. We show that her father signed off on every agreement. We show that Reynolds Holdings is thriving because of our investment. We make it clear that this complaint is baseless and motivated by personal financial desperation. Do it. Over the next 2 weeks, Richard and his legal team put together a response that was 47 pages long. It included every contract, every disclosure, every financial record related to the Reynolds Holdings acquisition. It included third-party audits confirming that the company was on the verge of bankruptcy before I stepped in. It included Robert Reynolds's signed agreements acknowledging the terms of the sale. We also included something else. We included Jessica's financial records, her debts, her spending patterns, her credit applications. We showed that she had financial motive to fabricate accusations in an attempt to extort a settlement. We filed the response with the Attorney General's office. And then we did something Jessica did not expect. We sent a copy to Robert Reynolds. Robert called me 3 hours later. Emily, he said. His voice was shaking. I just received a legal document. Is this real? Yes, I said. Jessica accused you of fraud? Yes. Why would she do that? Because she is desperate, I said. And because she thought I would pay her to make it go away. There was a long silence. I am sorry, Robert said finally. I had no idea. I did not raise her to be like this. I know, I said. What can I do? You can tell the truth, I said. If they interview you as part of the investigation, you tell them exactly what happened. You tell them that I saved your company. You tell them that every agreement was fair and legal. You tell them that without me, Reynolds Holdings would not exist. I will, he said. I promise. 3 days later, the Attorney General's office closed the investigation. They found no evidence of wrongdoing. They issued a formal statement saying the complaint was without merit. Jessica had lost. But she was not done. Dylan called me the next day. Mom, Jessica is escalating. What do you mean? She is threatening to go to the media. She says she is going to tell her story about how you manipulated her family and deceived everyone. She says she is going to paint you as a predator who preys on struggling businesses. I took a breath. Let her. What? Let her go to the media, I said. If she wants to make this public, we will make it public. And we will show everyone exactly who she is. Are you sure? Dylan, she is bluffing. She has no leverage. If she goes to the media, we release her financial records. We show that she is drowning in debt. We show that she took out life insurance on you. We show that she married you under false pretenses. She will not survive that kind of exposure. Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Mom, I think my marriage is over. I know, sweetheart, I said gently. I am so sorry. I really thought she loved me. I know. How did I not see it? Because you wanted to believe the best in her, I said. That is not a weakness, Dylan. That is who you are. You see the good in people. But sometimes people do not deserve that faith. He did not respond. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, trying not to cry. I am going to fix this, I said. I promise. Jessica did not go to the media. Instead, she did something worse. She hired a forensic accountant to audit every financial transaction I had made in the past 10 years. She subpoenaed records from my investment accounts, my business holdings, my real estate properties. She was trying to find something, anything, that she could use against me. Richard called me with an update. Emily, Jessica's legal team is requesting access to your personal financial statements. They are claiming they need it for the separation proceedings because they are trying to determine if Dylan has any claim to marital assets. Dylan and I do not have any shared assets, I said. Everything I own is mine. He has no claim. I know, Richard said. But they are arguing that because you financially supported Dylan at various points in his life, those gifts could be considered part of the marital estate. That is insane. I agree. But it is a strategy. They are trying to create enough legal complexity that you will settle just to make it go away. How much is she asking for now? $5 million. I laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was a bitter, exhausted laugh. She thinks I am going to give her $5 million? She thinks you will pay to avoid a prolonged legal battle, Richard said. She is wrong. I know. But Emily, I need to warn you. If this goes to court, it is going to be ugly. They're going to dig into every aspect of your life. They're going to question every decision you made. They are going to try to paint you as a manipulative, controlling person who used your wealth to influence your son's life. Let them, I said. I have nothing to hide. I know you do not, Richard said. But the court of public opinion is different from a court of law. Are you prepared for that? I thought about it. I thought about the life I had built, the invisibility I had carefully maintained, the privacy I had protected for so long. Jessica was trying to destroy all of that. She was trying to drag me into the light and expose me in the worst possible way. And I realized something. I did not care anymore. I was tired of hiding. I was tired of being strategic. I was tired of letting people like Jessica think they could manipulate me because I chose not to fight back. Yes, I said. I am prepared. Okay, Richard said. Then we fight. The next step was a formal mediation session. It was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Both sides would be present. Lawyers. Financial advisors. Jessica. Dylan. Me. I spent those 3 weeks preparing. I reviewed every document. I confirmed every transaction. I made sure I could explain every decision I had made. I was ready. The day of the mediation, I arrived early. The session was being held at a law office in downtown. The conference room was large, sterile, and intimidating. There was a long table in the center with chairs on both sides. Richard was already there. So was my attorney, a woman named Claire Donovan who specialized in family law and estate disputes. She was sharp, calm, and relentless. Jessica arrived 10 minutes later with her attorney, Philip Gaines, and a man I did not recognize. Richard leaned over and whispered, "That is her forensic accountant." Dylan arrived last. He looked exhausted. He sat on my side of the table, next to me. He did not look at Jessica. The mediator was a calm, professional man named David Ortiz. He opened the session by explaining the rules. Everyone would have a chance to speak. We would work through the issues one by one. The goal was to reach an agreement without going to court. Philip Gaines spoke first. My client, Jessica Reynolds, is here today because she believes she has been misled, manipulated, and financially exploited. She entered into a marriage believing she was joining a middle-class family. Instead, she discovered that her mother-in-law is secretly worth hundreds of millions of dollars and has been controlling significant aspects of her family's financial life without their knowledge. He paused for effect. Jessica is not asking for anything unreasonable. She is simply asking for what she is entitled to as a spouse. She is asking for financial transparency. She is asking for her fair share of marital assets. And she is asking for compensation for the emotional harm she has suffered as a result of this deception. Claire Donovan did not miss a beat. That is an interesting narrative, she said. But it is not based in fact. Emily Turner built her wealth through decades of legal, transparent, and strategic investments. She had no obligation to disclose her financial situation to anyone, including her son's fiancé. Jessica Reynolds entered this marriage with her own agenda. And when that agenda did not play out the way she hoped, she decided to file baseless accusations in an attempt to extort money. Philip bristled. That is defamatory. It is documented, Claire said. She opened a folder and slid a stack of papers across the table. These are Jessica's credit card statements. These are her loan applications. These are records showing she opened multiple lines of credit immediately after getting engaged to Dylan. This is the life insurance policy she took out on him without his knowledge. This is her search history showing she researched estate law and inheritance structures before she even got married. Jessica's face went red. Philip grabbed the papers and flipped through them quickly. Where did you get these? He demanded. They are a matter of public record, Claire said calmly. This is a violation of privacy. No, Claire said. This is evidence. And if this case goes to court, all of it will be submitted. The room went silent. David Ortiz cleared his throat. Let us take a step back. Ms. Reynolds, is there anything you would like to say? Jessica looked at me. Her eyes were hard. I loved Dylan, she said. I married him because I loved him. And then I found out his mother has been lying to everyone for years. She manipulated my father's business. She controlled our lives without us even knowing. And now she is trying to destroy me because I dared to ask for transparency. I met her gaze and did not look away. Jessica, I said quietly, you did not love Dylan. You loved what you thought he could give you. And when you realized he could not, you came after me. That is not true, she said. Then why did you take out a life insurance policy on him? She did not answer. Why did you hire an estate attorney before you even got married? She still did not answer. Why did you open 4 new credit accounts the month you got engaged? Her attorney put a hand on her arm. Do not answer that. I leaned forward. I will make you an offer, Jessica. One time. Take it or leave it. Everyone in the room stared at me. I will give you $5 million, I said. In exchange, you agree to a complete and permanent separation from Dylan. You sign away any claim to his future. You withdraw all accusations. And you never contact me or my son again. Jessica's eyes widened. Philip Gaines looked at her, calculating. That is a generous offer, David Ortiz said. Jessica looked at Dylan. What do you think? Dylan finally spoke. His voice was quiet but steady. I think you should take it, he said. Because I do not want to be married to someone who sees me as a transaction. Jessica flinched. And in that moment, I saw it. The mask fell. The performance ended. She realized she had lost. Jessica sat back in her chair, staring at the table. Philip Gaines leaned over and whispered something to her. She shook her head. He whispered again. She closed her eyes. Finally, she looked up at me. I want $7 million, she said. Claire Donovan did not hesitate. No. 6, Jessica said. Final offer. I looked at her for a long moment. I could see the desperation in her eyes. She knew this was her only chance. If she walked away from this table, she would get nothing. $5 million, I said. That is the offer. Take it or we go to court. And if we go to court, I will make sure every single piece of evidence we have gets entered into the public record. Your debts. Your lies. Your schemes. All of it. Jessica looked at Philip. He nodded slightly. Fine, she said. I will take it. Claire pulled out a document that had been prepared in advance. It was a settlement agreement. Jessica would receive $5 million in exchange for signing away all claims to any assets related to me or Dylan. She would agree to a full divorce. She would withdraw all complaints and accusations. And she would agree to a non-disclosure clause preventing her from speaking publicly about any of this. Jessica signed. Dylan signed. I signed. It was over. Jessica stood up without a word and walked out of the room. Philip Gaines followed her. The forensic accountant looked confused but packed up his things and left. Once they were gone, Dylan dropped his head into his hands. I am sorry, Mom, he said. I am so sorry I brought her into our lives. I put my hand on his shoulder. You have nothing to apologize for. You loved someone. That is never wrong. What she did with that love is on her, not you. He looked up at me, his eyes red. I feel like such an idiot. You are not an idiot, I said. You are kind. And people like Jessica take advantage of kind people because they do not understand kindness. They think it is weakness. Is it? No, I said firmly. Kindness is strength. It is choosing to be good even when the world gives you every reason not to be. Dylan nodded. He did not look convinced, but I knew he would get there eventually. Claire Donovan started packing up her files. Emily, I will have the final paperwork processed within the week. Once the funds are transferred and the divorce is finalized, this will be completely over. Thank you, Claire, I said. Richard walked over and handed me a folder. Jessica's parents' information. I took the liberty of setting up a trust for them. It will cover their mortgage for the next 5 years and provide Robert with a consulting salary of $100,000 a year. After that, they are on their own. I looked at him, surprised. Why did you do that? Because you were going to do it anyway, Richard said. And because Robert Reynolds is not a bad man. He just made bad decisions. He does not deserve to lose everything because his daughter is a con artist. He was right. I would have done it. Thank you, I said. We left the law office together. Outside, the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. I took a deep breath and felt something I had not felt in weeks. Relief. Dylan walked beside me to the parking lot. Before we got to our cars, he stopped. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you give her the money? You could have fought her in court. You could have won. I thought about how to answer that. Because fighting her would have cost me more than $5 million, I said. Not in money. In time. In energy. In peace. Jessica is not worth that. I would rather pay her to leave and move on with my life than spend the next year dragging her through court. But she does not deserve it. No, I agreed. She does not. But I do. I deserve peace. I deserve to move forward. And $5 million is a small price to pay for that. Dylan nodded slowly. You are a lot smarter than I gave you credit for. I smiled. I know. He laughed, a real laugh, the first one I had heard from him in weeks. What are you going to do now? He asked. I am going to go home, I said. I am going to make myself a cup of tea. I am going to sit on my back porch. And I am going to enjoy the fact that Jessica Reynolds is no longer my problem. And what am I going to do? Dylan asked. You are going to heal, I said. You are going to take your time. You are going to figure out who you are without her. And when you are ready, you are going to find someone who actually deserves you. He hugged me. It was a long, tight hug. I love you, Mom, he said. I love you too, sweetheart. We got in our cars and drove away. 3 days later, the funds were transferred. Jessica received her $5 million. The divorce paperwork was filed. Claire called me to confirm that everything was finalized. It is done, she said. Jessica signed the final agreement. The non-disclosure is in effect. She cannot talk about this publicly. She cannot contact Dylan. She cannot make any future claims. You are free. Thank you, Claire, I said. You handled this with more grace than most people would have, she said. I hope you know that. I just wanted it to be over. It is, she said. Now go live your life. I hung up and sat in my living room for a long time, just thinking. I thought about Thomas. I thought about the life we built together. I thought about the choices we made. I thought about the invisibility I had chosen and what it had cost me. And I realized something. I did not want to be invisible anymore. I called Richard. I want to do something different, I said. Okay, what do you have in mind? I want to start a scholarship fund. A real one. I want it to be public. I want it to support engineering students who come from low-income families. I want it to be in Thomas's name. Richard was quiet for a moment. That is a beautiful idea. I also want to move, I said. I want to leave this town. I want to go somewhere new. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can start fresh. Where are you thinking? Santa Fe, I said. I have always loved it there. Then do it, Richard said. You have earned it. Over the next 2 months, I made it happen. I set up the Thomas Turner Engineering Scholarship Fund with an endowment of $20 million. It would provide full-ride scholarships to 50 students every year. I worked with a university to establish the program. I attended the first award ceremony and met the recipients. They were brilliant, hungry, and grateful. It felt good. I also sold my house and moved to Santa Fe. I bought a small adobe home on the edge of town with a view of the mountains. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was exactly what I needed. Dylan came to visit me a month after I moved. He looked better, healthier, more like himself. This place is beautiful, Mom, he said as we sat on my back patio watching the sunset. Thank you, I said. I like it here. How are you doing? He asked. I am good, I said. And I meant it. I am proud of you, he said. For everything you did. For how you handled Jessica. For protecting me. For not letting her destroy you. She never could have, I said. Because I did not give her that power. Dylan smiled. I think I am finally starting to understand that. We sat in silence for a while, just enjoying the evening. I met someone, Dylan said quietly. I looked at him, surprised. You did? He nodded. Her name is Sarah. She is a teacher. She is kind. She is smart. She is nothing like Jessica. How did you meet? At a coffee shop, he said. I spilled my coffee on her. She laughed. We started talking. I asked her out. And I really like her, Mom. She does not care about money or status or any of that. She just likes me. I reached over and squeezed his hand. I am so happy for you. I want you to meet her, he said. I would love that. 2 weeks later, Dylan brought Sarah to visit. She was exactly what he described. Kind. Smart. Genuine. She looked at my son with real affection, not calculation. She asked me about my life, not my wealth. She was interested in who I was as a person, not what I could do for her. We spent the weekend together. We hiked. We cooked. We talked. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about Dylan's future. After they left, I sat on my patio and thought about everything that had happened. The wedding. Jessica's betrayal. The legal battle. The settlement. The move. The scholarship fund. All of it. And I realized that I was not the same person I had been a year ago. I was not invisible anymore. I was not hiding. I was not protecting myself from the world. I was living. Fully. Openly. Honestly. And it felt good. It has been 2 years since the divorce was finalized. 2 years since I moved to Santa Fe. 2 years since I stopped living in the shadows and started living in the light. I want to tell you what I have learned, because I think it matters. I think it matters for anyone who has ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or invisible. I think it matters for anyone who has ever been betrayed by someone they trusted. I think it matters for anyone who is trying to figure out how to rebuild their life after everything falls apart. First, I learned that real power is not about being seen. It is about knowing who you are. For years, I thought invisibility was strength. I thought that by staying hidden, I was protecting myself. And in some ways, I was. But I was also limiting myself. I was living in fear of what people would think, how they would react, what they would want from me. When Jessica forced me into the light, I realized something. The people who matter do not care about your money. They care about who you are. And the people who only care about your money are not worth your time. Second, I learned that you cannot control how other people see you. Jessica saw me as a target. She saw me as someone she could manipulate and exploit. No matter what I did, no matter how kind I was, she was always going to see me that way because that is who she is. You can be the most generous, most loving, most selfless person in the world, and some people will still find a way to use you. That is not your fault. That is their character, not yours. Third, I learned that protecting yourself is not selfish. For a long time, I felt guilty about keeping my wealth a secret from Dylan. I felt guilty about not telling him the truth. I thought maybe I was being manipulative or controlling. But the truth is, I was protecting him. I was giving him the chance to build his own life, to be proud of his own accomplishments, to know that he earned what he had. That was not manipulation. That was love. And when Jessica came after me, I protected myself. I fought back. I used my resources. I hired lawyers. I exposed her lies. And I did not feel guilty about it. Because protecting yourself from people who want to harm you is not wrong. It is necessary. Fourth, I learned that money does not define you, but how you use it does. I could have spent the past 20 years buying expensive things, living in a mansion, showing off my wealth. But that is not who I am. I used my money to build something meaningful. I helped struggling businesses. I funded scholarships. I supported people who needed a second chance. Jessica saw my money as something to take. I see it as something to give. That is the difference between us. Fifth, I learned that silence is not weakness. For 15 years, I said nothing. I let people assume I was ordinary. I let them underestimate me. And when the moment came, that silence became my greatest weapon. Jessica thought I was an easy target because I was quiet. She thought I would not fight back because I had not fought back before. She was wrong. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is preparation. Sixth, I learned that the most elegant form of revenge is thriving without them. I did not destroy Jessica. I did not ruin her life. I paid her to leave, and then I moved on. And now, 2 years later, I am thriving. I live in a place I love. I run a scholarship program that is changing lives. I have a close relationship with my son. I have peace. Jessica got $5 million. But she did not get me. She did not get my son. She did not get my dignity. She got money, and money is all she will ever have. I got my life back. Finally, I learned that it is never too late to start over. I am 64 years old. I spent the first 62 years of my life being one kind of person, and now I am becoming another. I am more open. I am more visible. I am more willing to take risks and let people see who I really am. And you know what? It is terrifying, but it is also the most alive I have ever felt. So if you are watching this and you feel invisible, if you feel overlooked, if you feel like no one sees you or values you, I want you to hear this. You are not invisible because you are not important. You are invisible because you have chosen to be. And that is okay. There is power in that. But if you are ready, if you want to be seen, if you want to step into the light and live fully and loudly and unapologetically, you can do that too. It is never too late. Dylan and Sarah got engaged last month. She is everything I hoped he would find. She loves him for who he is, not what he comes from. When he told me, he called me crying happy tears. He said, "Mom, I think I finally understand what love is supposed to feel like. I am going to walk him down the aisle. I am going to wear something beautiful. I am not going to hide in the background. I am going to be there fully present, fully visible, celebrating my son and the life he is building. And I am going to be proud, because the real embarrassment was never being overlooked. The real embarrassment was wasting time trying to impress people who did not matter. The real embarrassment was living small when I was capable of so much more. I do not live small anymore. I live big. I live boldly. I live with purpose. And if you take one thing away from my story, let it be this. You do not need permission to be powerful. You do not need validation to matter. You do not need recognition to make a difference. You just need to decide that you are worth more than the box people try to put you in. And then you need to break out of that box and live the life you were meant to live. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please leave a comment below telling me what you thought. Tell me if you have ever felt invisible. Tell me if you have ever had to fight back against someone who underestimated you. I read every single comment, and your stories matter to me. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel. I share stories like this every week, stories about people who refused to be overlooked, who fought for their dignity, who rebuilt their lives after betrayal. You are not alone in this. None of us are. Thank you again. I will see you in the next video.